Hello, good afternoon. My name is James Whitfield. I am the founder and CEO of Ex-Offenders Resource Network, a Minnesota nonprofit organization founded by an ex-offender for ex-offenders to help the men and women coming home after lengthy periods of incarceration to reacclimate to the 21st century. It is our primary goal to teach these men and women the basic functions of how to use a computer, how to conduct research on a computer, and also how to learn to do apps, to do games, to do documentary films, and also to teach them to write their own business plan so that they'll be able to better succeed in life. Thank you. Hello, my name is James Whitfield. I am a convicted bank robber. I served 17 and a half years in federal prison. I was released on January 3rd, 2005. However, since my release, I have been unable to find employment in my chosen field as a paralegal. I have approximately 25 years experience in the field of law. In a brief conversation with Minnesota Senator Michelle Benson from Ham Lake, I hope to meet with her soon to get her views and takes on this from a Republican stance. Recently, I met with State Senator Jeff Hayden and also Minnesota State Representative Raymond Dean, who have helped push the legislation banning the box.
Tyrone Ellis, and I've been incarcerated for 13 and a half years. I've been out for 4 years.
Hello, my name is Walter Womack. I just recently served 20 and a half years in federal prison for conspiracy to distribute cocaine. I was released December 29th, 2011. I've been out approximately about 18 months now.
Now I'm back. I'm speaking once again on the issue of banning the box, in which I discussed with Senator Jeff Hayden and also with Representative Raymond Dean of the Minnesota House of Representatives. We spoke at length about various topics on the ways in which the state of Minnesota is now joining the national movement Rethink Crime and Punishment here in America. Over the last 3 decades, there have been some draconian sentences that have been handed down to hundreds of thousands of prisoners each year. And now, after 10, 15, 20 years, those prisoners are finally being set free. Once again, we're on location here with Senator Jeffrey Hayden at the Turtle Bread Company in South Minneapolis. Senator Hayden, recently there was legislation that has been passed called Ban the Box, and I was wondering, why is the issue of ex-offenders getting jobs important to you?
Well, you know, I think that we all know in the community I serve and all around the state and this country that there has been a lot of folks that have been sent to jail for making a poor choice. But we also know that we've had very strict sentencing laws that have taken kind of poor choices and made them really, really tough choices. So Ban the Box is really important because as ex-felons re-enter society, it is very important that they have 3 things. Number 1, they need to have a job. Number 2, they need to have a place to live. And number 3, they need to reintegrate to society so that they don't repeat the crimes that they did before.
Okay, thank you, Senator Hayden, on that one. Now the second question is why has this taken so long for the government to recognize this problem?
Well, I just think that especially from the late 80s when we started having mandatory minimum sentences and things of that nature where people were going to jail for a long time, it hit a particular population. African American men and other minority communities were disproportionately hit in those mandatory minimum sentences. Those folks are now gone through the criminal justice system and now are re-entering society in great numbers. So I think that it took the government a long time to realize that if you're going to put these folks in jail in great numbers, that at some point you have to let them out. And now that these folks are being let out, they're now realizing that they're sending them out ill-equipped. They have guidelines and they have things in which people have to do that don't allow them to get an opportunity to reintegrate in society. So I think Ban the Box and reentry legislation and a good look from government to take a look at what should we do with those folks is very important so that they become not now as a burden to society, where we're clothing, feeding them, making sure that they have their guarding them, that now they reintegrate in society where they're paying their way, they're paying taxes, and that they're reintegrating with their families and taking care of them.
Now the other question is, how closely will the House of Representatives and the Senate work together to help move this initiative forward?
We're working very closely together. As you mentioned earlier this year, we did the Ban the Box legislation, which has really told employers that they cannot ask people if they have a criminal history upon application. That's something that they might be able to ask later, but we're hoping that that allows more people who are ex-felons and folks that have been in the criminal justice system to get an opportunity to talk about who they are and what they should be doing. So the House and Senate, the Minnesota House and Senate is very, very dedicated, along with the governor, in making positive public policy that allows people to reintegrate into society.
Hello. Today we're here at the office of State Representative Raymond Dean, and today we'll be meeting with Mr. Dean as well as Mr. Walter Womack, and we'll be discussing the issues involving the latest legislation, Ban the Box, and Mr. Dean's most recent article in the Star Tribune for my film, Bridging the Gap from Prison to Workforce.
Hey, Mr. Dean, I have a couple of questions that I'm interested in. I want to know, why is it taking so long for this issue to be addressed as far as the unemployment rate for inmates being released from prison?
Well,
You know, I mean, I think part of it is stopping and looking where this came from. You know, back in the 1980s, we started the war on drugs. All of a sudden, incarceration increased, you know, from what was really a more reasonable number relative to crime. It's increased over 400% over the past 30 years. So that tells me that the war on drugs really haven't been successful on the war on drugs. What has been successful is the expansion of the prison industrial complex. You know, out of the 50 states, there are many different laws about the ability of an individual's record to be accessed relative to employment. And I think that it's taking this long because it's something that really hasn't been talked about. You know, I mean, this issue has really only been talked about in the past probably 6 or 7 years as a critical issue. And you know, I'm relatively new here at the legislature. I've only been here 6 months, but you know, I mean, things really have to be out there for the most part in the public eye, or there needs to be some passionate people that are helping us as legislators understand that we need to move these things forward. So I would say that it's taken a while, but you know, the Second Chance Coalition, which is a group that has organized around the issue of you know, those with criminal records becoming reintegrated into society. You know, it's been several years, and that's just the nature. You know, I mean, a couple of years ago, Ban the Box had like no chance of passing. So, you know, there have been some strides made pretty recently.
You know, my take on this and my experience from dealing with the Department of Justice and these issues is that this is my opinion, and I feel strongly about this. I feel as though it's not about caring for these individuals being released from prison. I think it's all about money, tax dollars. I think when it becomes an issue where there's more tax dollars being spent on these inmates and these people being released from prison, then all of a sudden someone opens their eyes and says, oh wow, we shouldn't be spending this much money on them. We need to figure this out. That's how I look at it. That's how I viewed the war on drugs. It never was a problem until it became a money issue. There never was a problem about the employment until they become a money issue. I think it's a point that no one's really caring as much as they should, or it shouldn't have took so long for the war on drugs or this to come to the public eye. That's my opinion of that.
You know, and your opinion isn't invalid. I mean, you know, there are a lot of conservative people that are engaged in this because the cost of our criminal justice system, the cost of our incarceration of people is getting to the point that it's really sort of crippling government. Now, you know, there are corporations, there are systems in place that benefit greatly from people being locked up, you know, and that's sort of one side of it. And the other is, you know, do we have a penal system or do we have a rehabilitation system? You know, rehabilitation system is one that you do something, we removed you from society, and we're trying to rehabilitate you so that when you get out, you're able to sort of go right back into society. And, you know, if, you know, I mean, I always say that there's 3 things that someone wants when they get out of prison: a job, a place to live, and sex. And one of them is usually pretty easy to get, and it's not a job, it's not a place to live. So, you know, ultimately, I think there are a lot of people that care about this issue, and that the number of people are growing. There are attitudes that people do turn their lives around. They do have the ability to redeem themselves. And so we need to give those folks the opportunity so that when they do that, they can actually do that. I mean, you can tell a person all day long that, you know, we're gonna, you know, make your life easy and all these other things, but if, you know, every day they're applying for 2-3 jobs and we're getting doors shut on them, and, you know, they've got to figure out how to live, they've got to figure out, I mean, quite frankly, oftentimes, you know, we're human beings, we want to survive. So we'll do what it takes to survive. So, I mean, you're absolutely right that a lot of this has to do with money, and the economic equation that has worked for the past several decades isn't working anymore, and that's why you're seeing a lot more people getting on board.
You know, and I'm also a believer that, you know, I know what it took to get there, and at least it got there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at some point it got there. I just don't agree with the road it takes to get there. You know, but now that it's there, and we're looking at the issue and at the problems, you know what I'm saying, then now there has to be some type of system in place.
Well, and that's one of the things, you know, that the bandbox legislation in the state of Minnesota makes it so that a private employer can't ask you if you have a criminal record at the time of application. Unless there's, you know, protected jobs within the DHS, there are some things. And ultimately, that gets an individual the opportunity, hopefully, to sit in front of someone and talk about what had happened and what they've done since then, so that the person evaluating them is actually giving them that chance. Doesn't guarantee anybody a job, you know, ultimately.
Right. And the way I view that is that behind the box, it opens up jobs for people with criminal records, but it opens up low-paying jobs. You know, so that still puts you in the position of being underemployed. You know, because if you have any type of position where you have significant gain, they're going to do a background check on you. So regardless if you have banned the box or not, once they do that background check, it was senseless.
I'm going to
to a certain degree.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
With some employers, that might be the case, but I'm going to disagree with you. I think that, you know, there are going to be employers that are going to look at this as an opportunity to talk to folks. You know, believe it or not, there are some businesses and corporations that aren't just concerned about the bottom line, and there are some that are concerned about the bottom line. And I'll tell you, one of the fellow legislators that was quoted in the article the other day, I mean, he talked about he has businesses and he's hired folks with criminal records, and he says that they're the best workers he's ever hired because they've got everything to prove, and they show up every day and they work really, really hard, and you know, they're trying to do that. And you know, I think there's always going to be a wide spectrum of incomes and things, and you know, there's work being done around employment goals for state projects and things. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to make it so that it's not that like everybody that has a criminal record is only getting a job for, you know, $7.25 an hour, you know, at minimum wage. I mean, that's why, you know, we're funding programs that, you know, have job training and things like that as part of you know, the state funding beyond Ban the Box, so that individuals are able to get the skills necessary to get good paying jobs. Because, you know, ultimately we all benefit when folks have good paying jobs.
What do you feel could be done to better assist ex-offenders following their release from incarceration?
Well, I think that it starts while they're in incarceration. First of all, I think that the laws that send people are a little too tough, that we need to take a look at our laws to make sure that the punishment fits the crime. But indeed, when someone does make a mistake and they do have to go into the criminal justice system, I think we need to start immediately doing assessments to figure out what are the issues that drove the person to do that. We know a disproportionate amount of people in the criminal justice system are addicted to drugs. We know a disproportionate amount of people have a mental health condition. We know a disproportionate amount of people are undereducated. And so I would start by following up on their mental health status, their chemical health status, and give them the skills that they need so that when they then re-enter society, they have some of those things taken care of and they're ready to work and they're ready to reintegrate with their families. And then in addition to that, we need to continue to fund reentry programs that then allow a soft landing and a transition into the community along with support group and networks so that the folks don't go back to their old crowd. They have a new crowd that's ready to move forward and be productive members of society.
We're living below poverty, but if the job market was better structured to assist us, then that wouldn't be the case.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Womack. Do you feel that the United States probation officers are doing enough to help these men and women coming out of prisons by going out and meeting ahead of time with these corporate executives?
I don't believe so, because I haven't had a PO yet to tell me that here's a corporate job or a job that I think that you can obtain. They had a thing called Ban the Box, and Ban the Box was supposed to create more jobs and make more opportunities for felons. Hello, my name is Walter Womack. I'm here today interviewing Senator Michelle Benson on behalf of Ex-Offenders Resource Network. We're going to talk about several issues here today as far as from prison to workforce issues. We'd like to start our topic with the issue on ban the box.
Yes, thank you, Walter, very much, and thank you for letting me be here. I did support Ban the Box because of some experiences that I had had in my personal life and in hiring. I know that when someone has served their time, reformed their lives, the box provided one more hurdle to successfully reintegrating into community. And having that barrier was just one thing we could easily move out of the way.
But the only issue I have with ban the box is still that you have companies that, even though you have ban the box, it really isn't effective when you have companies that do background checks. You know, so when they do a background check and they see that you're an ex-offender, then it's really irrelevant to that issue or to their job to even have ban the box.
Well, and I would disagree. I think companies have the right to do background checks on their employees, particularly child care centers and financial institutions. We want to know who we're dealing with as an employer and employee situation. However, by taking the box off the application form, it allows the employer the opportunity to look at someone's experience, to look at someone's qualifications, and then if they do a background check and find that the offense was 15 years ago and they've had a steady record of work, they can set that aside and still be fully informed as to who they're hiring and have that opportunity for the individual.
I know it's early in the stage of ban the box. Is there any statistics that show that this is really effective?
I have not seen any reports on the effectiveness of removing the box.
Okay. Well, I guess this time will tell. And I agree with you. I agree with you that, you know, sometimes something is better than nothing.
I think it's steps that we take and we build trust so that employers gain confidence in hiring someone who's had some stumbles in life, has been incarcerated, and has found their way out.
Next question here is that we want to know, how does the work opportunity tax credit fit in with ban the box?
I think that's just one more way to encourage an employer to take that second look. We remove the box so that employers get a chance to review work experience, skills that have been developed by that individual, and then if they get a tax credit, it will make them take yet another look and say, all right, I'm going to give this person a shot. They've served their time, they are serving their community, they have a good work history, and it's worth taking the chance.
Another question is that we researched the tax credit, and what we found is that a lot of employers are not even aware of the tax credit. And a lot of guys that interview for jobs, positions, they came back and said that they had to explain the tax credit to them. So I don't really think that it's getting out there to employers that that's there available to them
And
as an incentive.
I can tell you, Walter, and the audience, as a legislator, I wasn't aware of it until you brought it to me, but also as an employer, I wasn't aware of it until you pointed it out to me. So I think there could be some more outreach. I think there could be better effort by some of the advocacy communities, just like we're trying to do veterans hiring initiatives. We have to do outreach. We have to work a little bit harder in order to get the word out there. It's a valuable tool that employers can use to build a really strong workforce.
I agree with you. So I agree that there's still work to be done as far as communications and getting the word out to employers. And I wonder why that's not out there. I wonder why that's not really, you know, out front with the ban the box.
You know, I don't know, perhaps the people who were working in the Ban the Box campaign didn't think of linking the two. And so I think it's an opportunity to make the Ban the Box provisions even stronger.
How do you prepare for implementing this into Ban the Box? As far as when you go out and you speak about Ban the Box, how do you prepare for this? How do you intend to prepare?
Personal stories, I think, are the most powerful. I had a friend from church whose husband had committed a felony a long time ago, never told his kids, and every time he applied for a job, he had to go and explain that he was a stupid kid and he wasn't going to make those mistakes again, and would they please give him a chance. And it really touched me that he had worked so hard to rebuild his life, and yet every time he applied for a job, he had to explain. And so that's the primary reason I supported the provision, and I hope it bears much more fruit than just in his case.
And that's the story of a lot of ex-offenders' lives as far as employment history, that it never goes away. It seems like it's just like a death sentence to you. It's like once it's attached to you, it just never goes away.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we hope that by removing the check the box provisions, completing ban the box, employers will look through all the assets that an employee offers, and then balance that against what they had done perhaps in their youth. A lot of time has passed, and this person has built a good character, has built a good work history, and give them that chance. And I hope that the tax credit gives a little bit more of a nudge.
Next question, is the WOTC time frame adequate for job seekers?
And I'm sorry, you're gonna have to help me out with what's the time frame. Do we know?
I'm not exactly sure what the time, I think the time frame is 1 year.
So if you hire someone within 1 year of being released, fulfilling their sentence, then you would qualify. I would say maybe longer than a year wouldn't be a bad idea. I understand the average is 18 months, so if we went to 18 months, I think that would be fairly reasonable. It also gives the person who has completed their sentence the opportunity to kind of get their legs under them a little bit, maybe work on a special skill instead of feeling this intense pressure to day one start looking for a job, because that could lead to a great deal of frustration. And so if they had just a little more time to complete and qualify, I think it might actually accelerate hiring.
And you're moving faster than I am. Because our next question was, are you aware of the average ex-offender's search for employment is 1.5 years, which is 18 months before they find employment?
I wasn't until you guys told me today, just like the tax credit, so I appreciate the education.
Okay, we'll just go on to the next question because we seem to answer that before I even answer. Would the state of Minnesota stand behind an organization that can reduce recidivism and provide real work job skills for the 21st century workplace?
I think the citizens of Minnesota would, whether it gets a government grant or something like that, would have to go through the legislative process. But I think the direction that you want to move is something that most Minnesotans would be very supportive of working with. Most people that I know want to see people succeed and move up instead of being held down, tied to a particular program. Let's get them educated, get them working, and get them succeeding.
Okay, can we pause for a minute? Pause.
you.